Hello everyone, welcome to our video for today. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 1-2, segment addition postulate and midpoint. To start off this section, first we're going to be looking at measuring segments. So if you look here on our right, we have a segment, our segment AB, and they're asking me here, what is the length of segment AB? So if we look at our number line here, we know that the length of our segment is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 units. So the distance between 2 points, point A and point B, be written as the length of segment AB. Or, and is in geometry, we just write it as AB. This alone, this automatically is already asking us what is the length of segment AB. That's what it says when you have the two letters without the little bar on the top. That means it is asking you what is the length of segment AB. Congruent segments. So in this case, if we look on the right, we have two segments now. We have segment AB and we have segment CD. So if we compare their lengths, let's look at segment AB. We find the length for it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. The length of segment AB is 4 units. And for the length of segment CD is 1, 2, 3, 4, also 4 units. So in this case, that means that these two segments are congruent. So it says is the length of segment AB is equal to the length of segment CD, then the segments are congruent. Remember the word congruent, that means equal. That means that this is written as the segment AB is congruent to segment CD. This little symbol right there, that means congruent. That's how we write congruent. The little equal line with the squiggly line, that means congruent. So it means that they are equal to each other. They have the same length. Now here is the most important part what we're going to be looking at today. Here we're going to cover the segment addition postulate. Now what is the segment addition postulate? It says that if points A, B, and C are collinear, remember we said the word collinear, that means that they're points on the same line. So if points A, B, and C are on the same line, they're collinear, and point B is between point A and C, so as you can see here, point B is somewhere in between point A and C, then we have this equation right here. Now this equation is telling me, this is our segment addition postulate, it's telling me that the length of segment AB, this length right here, plus the length of segment BC from B all the way to C equals to the length of segment A from A all the way to C. So basically here it says if you add the two sections here, segment AB plus segment BC, that's going to equal to the entire segment from A all the way to C. Pretty basic, right? Remember we said that the word postulate, that means that's something that we don't have to prove that it's true. It's something pretty common sense, right? So now these right here is what we're going to be looking at to solve for our next problem for our segment addition postulate. Let's go ahead and try some examples. All right, so we have our first example here. So it's asking me, if it's telling me that if the length of segment PQ, so from here to here, is 9. Okay, so let's label here, this is 9. And the length of segment QR, from here to here is 28. So now the question is asking me, find the length of segments, find the length of segments from P all the way to R. So in this case, what do you think we have to do? All right, so let's recall our segment addition postulate. The segment addition postulate tells me this, that if I add the length of segment PQ plus the length of segment from Q to R, that's going to equal the length of segment from P all the way to R. This right here is my segment addition postulate. Right, I'm going to abbreviate here. Okay, so then let's go ahead and just substitute in the information that I know. I know the length of segment PQ was 9 plus the length of segment QR is 28. That's going to equal to what the question is asking me for PR. So since I don't know it, I'm just going to leave it as PR. All right, so then 9 plus 28, what is that going to give me? 37. So that means that the length of segment from P for the length of segment PR is going to equal to 37. Pretty basic, right? I mean, again, we just add from here to here is 9, plus from here to here is 28. So together should be what? 37. All right, let's go ahead and try the second example. It's telling me that the length of segment QR, so from here to here is 17. And then that the length of segment from P all the way to R, so from here all the way to R, that's going to equal to 21. So now it's asking me how much is it from P to Q. So now how do I find this length right here from here to here? How do I know how long that is? All right, so let's go ahead and set up what we do know. I know my segment addition postulate that tells me that from length of segment PQ plus the length of segment QR, that's going to equal to the length of segment from P all the way to R. That is a given. That is for sure what I know from my segment addition postulate. So now let's go ahead and substitute in what I know. PQ, well, I don't know what PQ is right now. Where did it tell me? So that's going to stay the same because that's what I'm looking for. Plus the length of segment QR, they told me that QR was how much? Right here it tells me QR is 17. Oops. QR is 17 equals to, from length of segment PR, how much did it tell me PR was? 21. So in this case, how can we solve for PQ? How can we find the length of segment PQ? In this case, we can just solve it. Numbers with numbers. And we're going to move it to the opposite side, and we use the opposite sign. Minus 17. Oops. Minus 17. And so in this case, what is it going to tell me? How much is it going to give me? Length of segment PQ equals to 4. So that means that the length of this segment right here is 4. And I can always double check my answer because if I add 4 plus 17, how much is that going to give me? 21, which means that my answer is correct. So the length of segment PQ is 4. All right, so far that's what the segment addition postulate is. But now, let's go ahead and bring in the algebra. Remember I told you guys since the very beginning that geometry involves a lot of algebra. So now if we look at this example here, it's telling me that if length of segment EG, okay, so from E all the way to G, the whole thing together equals to 71. And now the question is asking me, find the value of X. That means that they want me to solve for X here. Now, how am I gonna do that? Again, all I know right here is I can set up my segment addition postulate, right? The segment addition postulate here is, I'm gonna write it over here on this side. I know that the length of segment EF plus, oops, that looks like a T, plus the length of segment from E to F plus from length of segment FG equals to the length of segment E all the way to G. Right here, this right here is my segment addition postulate. I'm going to abbreviate here. This is my segment addition postulate, right? From E to F plus from F to G equals from E all the way to G. All right, so then once I set up my equation, now I can just substitute in the information that I know. How much is EF? We said that EF right here is 8x minus 17. All right, so let me write it in here. Let me use a different color so it can be easier for you to see. All right, I'm going to use green for EF. It's going to be 8x minus 17. And then plus, next is going to be my length of segment, FG. How much is FG? From FG is 5x minus 3. All right, so then I substitute it into my equation. I'm going to use a different color. 5x minus 3, and then I continue my equation equals to, and how much did they tell me length of segment EG was? They told me the length of segment EG was 71. So EG is 71. So there you go. I just set up my equation just by simply substituting into my formula for segment addition postulate. Again, I just substituted the information that they gave me here to come up with my equation. So if they want me to solve for X, then from here, I just have to combine letters with letters, numbers with numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and start here. All right, so first let's start with letters with letters. I have 8x plus 5x. How much does that give me? 8x plus 5x is 13x. And now numbers with numbers. I've got negative 17 minus 3. I've got minus 20. I bring everything else down. Equals to 71. All right, and then now the only thing that I can move here is my numbers with numbers. So the only one that I can move here is a negative 20 to the opposite side. So opposite sign, plus 20, plus 20. This goes away, and so I'm left with 13x equals to 71 plus 20 is 91. And lastly, again, since they're multiplying, I want to leave my x by itself. So what's the opposite of multiplying? I divide by the same, divide by 13. And what I do to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So this goes away, and I'm left with x equals to 91 divided by 13. That gives me 7. So in this case, again, the question was asking me, find the value of x. X equals to 7. Right, and we can always double check our answer. How can I double check my answer? Well, look, if I know that x equals to 7, if I go back to the information that they gave me here, let me go ahead and erase all this highlighting. If I know that x equals to 7, I can always substitute in my answers. If I put here that this is 8, instead of the x, I know it's 7 minus 17. How much is that going to give me? 8 times 7 minus 17, that's going to give me 39. So this right here is 39. And then let's do the same thing here. 5 times, instead of the x, I know that x is 7. Times 7 minus 3, how much is that going to give me? 5 times 7 minus 3, that gives me 32. So if I add these two numbers, what should it give me? It should give me 71. And yes, if you check in your calculator, if you add 39 plus 32, that gives me 71. So that means this assures me that my answer is correct, that x does equal to 7. You can always go back to double check your answer. Right, but in this case, my answer is x equals to 7. All right, let's try this example now. If I look at this one here, they're telling me length of segment CE. So from C all the way to E, let me use my marker from C all the way to E is 7x plus 4. And the question is telling me again to find the value of x. All right, so again, how can I set up my equation? I know my segment addition postulate tells me that the length of segment CD plus the length of segment CE, that's going to equal the length of segments from C all the way to E. Again, this is a given. This is setting up for my figure here that they're giving me. All right, and then after that, all I have to do is substitute in the information that I know. I know that CD is how much? X plus 3. So let's substitute it in there. X plus 3. Plus, how much is DE? Let me erase this right here. How much is length of segment DE? Well, DE, they told me, is 8x minus 9. All right, so then let's substitute it into the equation here. So let me clean this up. Plus, the length of segments DE, they told me, is 8x minus 9. And that's going to equal to the length of segment CE. In this case, what did they tell me length of segment CE was? 7x plus 4, and they tell me right here. The length of segment CE is 7x plus 4. So I substitute it into my equation. 7x plus 4. And there you go. That's how I set up my equation, just by substituting in the information that they're giving me into my segment addition postulate. So now all I'm left to do is combine letters with letters, numbers with numbers. If you see here on the left side, I can combine, I have 1x plus 8x. How many x's do I have? I have 9x. And then I got numbers with numbers. So I've got positive 3 minus 9. That gives me negative 6. And then bring everything else down, equals to 7x plus 4. And now in this case, I have letters and letters and numbers on both sides. Again, in this case, it's your choice where you want to start moving to one side and to the other. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and start with letters. And the one that is best to move is my 7x to the opposite side. Like that, I don't have any negative numbers. So in this case, if I move, oops, let me erase this right here. In this case, if I move my 7x to the opposite side, I use the opposite sign, minus 7x. Minus 7x. This goes away, and I'm left with 2x minus 6 equals to positive 4. Now, in this case, the only thing that I can move here is the negative 6 to the opposite side to put numbers with numbers together. So in this case, I'm going to move it to the opposite side, so opposite sign. Plus 6 plus 6. This goes away, and I'm left with 2x equals to 4 plus 6 is 10. And lastly, here to solve for x, since they're multiplying, I do the opposite. To get rid of the 2, I should divide by the same, divide by 2. And what I do to one side, I do it to the 11. It goes away, and so x equals to 10 divided by 2 is 5. And there you go. That's how we can set up our equation so that we can solve for x. Again, we can always double, triple check our answer by substituting it back into the equation and see that once you get your numbers, your answer is correct. Let's go ahead and try that out. So again, if x is 5, that means here I have 5 plus 3. How much is this going to be? 8. All right. So length of segment CD is 8. What about length of segment DE? So in this case, it's 8 times x, which is 5, minus 9. How much is that going to give me? 8 times 5 is 40, minus 9 is 31. All right, and so then here in this case, how much should it be from C to E? If I add 8 plus 31, it should give me 39, right? Let's double check. It would have 7, oops. That means I have 7 times 5 in this case. In this case, 7 times 5. And then plus 4, how much is that going to give me? 7 times 5 is 35, plus 4 is 39, which is exactly what I would need it to get to prove that my answer is correct, because 8 plus 31 gives me 39. That means that my answer, my x, is correct. All right, so now your turn to try out these two problems. I want you to go ahead and put pause to the video so that you can work out these two problems on your notes. Try them out on your own. Set up your segment addition postulate and substitute in your values so that you can solve for each one. Go ahead and put pause, try it out, and then once you are finished, go ahead and put play so that you can look at the answers that I'm going to give you to check if your work is correct. If you get stuck or anything, you're more than welcome to come back right now to the Zoom so you can ask me for questions. Right, go ahead and put pause and try them out on your own. All right, so for the first problem here, for length of segment MN, you should have gotten, this one was going to be 23. And in this problem, they're asking you to find the value of x, and once you solve it, you should have gotten that x equals to 4. So if you got these answers correct, yay, but if not, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to go back to the Zoom and I can answer any questions that you may have. And if not, okay, let's go ahead and continue. All right, but then in this example, it says, but what if? In this problem, they're asking me that if length of segment SK is 13x minus 5, and length of segment KY is 2x plus 9, and length of segment SY from S all the way to Y is 36 minus x, they're asking me to find the value of each. So in this problem, they're not only asking me to solve for x, they're also asking me to find the length of all the segments as well. But again, how do I do this? All I know is in this figure, let's go ahead and fill in the information that I know. They're telling me that the length of segment SK is 13x minus 5. And then the length of segment KY is 2x plus 9. And length of segment from S all the way to Y is going to be 36 minus x. All right, so I have all of that information. So to solve it, what I need to do is set up my segment addition postulate. And my segment addition postulate is, I know that the length of segment is K from S to K plus the length of segment KY is going to equal to the length of segment S all the way to Y. That right there is my segment addition postulate. And so all I'm left to do here is to go ahead and substitute the information that I know. I know that the length of segment SK, they told me, is 13x minus 5. So let's go ahead and substitute it into the equation. I have length of segment SK is 13x minus 5 plus the length of segment KY, they told me, was 2x plus 9. This is right here up in the equation. Length of segment KY is 2x plus 9. That's going to equal to the length of segment SY. And so in this case, they told me that the length of segment SY is 36 minus x. So in this case here, we have length of segment SY is 36 minus x. So there you go. I set up my equation. So now all I have to do here is solve for x, because in order for me to find the length of all my other segments for SK, I got to know what x is first. So in order for me to substitute it, I got to solve for x first. So let's go ahead and solve for x first. Letters with letters, numbers with numbers. So I've got 13x plus 2x. That leaves me with 15x. And then I've got numbers with numbers. I've got negative 5 plus 9. That leaves me with positive 4 equals 2, and I bring in the rest, 36 minus x. In this case, I've got letters and letters with numbers and numbers on both sides. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and start with the letters first. The best one to move here is a positive x to the opposite side so that we can be left with positive numbers. So opposite side, opposite sign, plus x plus x. This goes away, and I'm left with 16x plus 4 equals to 36. And so then after that, again, I know the only thing that I can move here is my numbers with numbers. So in this case, I'm going to move the 4 to the opposite side. So opposite sign. Minus 4, minus 4. This goes away, and I'm left with 16x equals to 32. And lastly, to solve for x, since I'm multiplying, I divide by 16. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. So this goes away, and so I'm left with x equals to 36 divided by 16 is 2. All right, so I was able to solve for x, and I got my first answer here. In order for me to solve for x, well, it's an ugly 2. I solved for x, and I got that my x value is 2. All right, but then again, the question is also asking me, what is the length of segment SK, length of segment KY, and length of segment SY? So what do you think we have to do now? In order for us to find the length of those segments, we have to substitute in our values. I know that length of segment SK, they told me was, let me go ahead and scroll this up. They told me that the length of segment SK was how much? Equals to 13x minus 5. Well, I already know what x is, right? I found that x is 2. So then in order for me to find the length of segment SK, I got to substitute it in. 13 times 2 minus 5. So then what's the length of segment SK? 13 times 2 is 26 minus 5. 26 minus 5. That means the length of segment SK is 21. All right, so if on the length of segment of K is 21, let's do the same thing for segment KY. I know that segment KY is 2x plus 9. Well, I already know that x is 2, so that means the length of segment KY equals to 2 times 2 plus 9. All right, so if I continue simplifying, no, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 9. So the length of segment KY equals to 13. All right, but now what about for this last one, SY? There's 2 ways we can find it. One way is I can do the same thing. Let me go ahead and do that de una vez. I have SY, length of segment SY is 36 minus X. I already know that X is 2, so this is SY. Length of segment SY is 36 minus 2. All right, so length of segment SY is 34. Now, how do I know my answer is correct? Because here, remember, what do we say? Length of segment SK plus length of segment KY, they should equal to the length of segment SY. Well, what's 21 plus 13? 34. And so that's how I know my answer is correct, because all the information that I'm getting is true. It all applies on the segment addition postulate. All right, so that's how we can find the length of each segment after we were able to solve for X. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and try this example. Now in this one here, they're telling me if length of segments TV, okay, so from segment from T all the way to V. So I got 14x minus 8, the whole thing together. Here they're only asking me for one specific length. They're asking me for length of segments TU. So for this one here. In this case, I know that length of segment TU is 9x plus 2. But in order for me to find the length, I got to solve for x first. And so how can I solve for x? How can I set up my equation? Again, with my segment addition postulate, which tells me that the length of segments TU plus length of segment UV, that equals to the length of segment from T all the way to V. Again, I get that from my drawing here. And so let's go ahead and substitute in our information. I know that length of segments TU right here is 9x plus 2 plus the length of segment UV, they told me is how much? 5. That should equal to the length of segment TV. In this case, they gave me the whole length, which is 14x minus 8. And there you go. I set up my equation. Now I can solve for x. Here in this case, all I can combine here is my numbers with numbers, positive 2 plus 5. That gives me 7. So I have 9x plus 7 equals to 14x minus 8. After that, we have letters and numbers on both sides. Let's go ahead and start with letters first. The best one to move here is the 9x to the opposite side. So opposite sign, minus 9x minus 9x. This goes away, and I'm left with 7 equals to 14x minus 9x. That gives me 5x minus 8. All right, and so in this case, I got numbers with numbers. I cannot move the 7, so the only one I can move is the negative 8 to the opposite side. So opposite sign, plus 8 plus 8. This goes away, and so I'm left with 7 plus 8. That gives me 15 equals to, bring down the rest, 5x. And again, since I want to solve for x, I want to get rid of the 5. Since they're multiplying, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I got to divide by the same, divide by 5. And if I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. All right, so that goes away, and so I'm left with x equals to 3. Oh, there you go, Mr. Ortega. Yay, are we done? Is that what the question is asking me? Is the question asking me for x? No, right? Again, the question is asking me to find the length of segments TU. So once you have your x, now all you have to do is to substitute it into the equation. I'm going to write it over here. I know the length of segment TU is 9x plus 2. Well, you already know what x is, right? We found out that x is 3. So now all we have to do is substitute into the equation. I have length of segment TU equals to 9 times 3 plus 2. And so now we're left to simplify. TU, length of segment TU is 9 times 3 is 27 plus 2. So that means the length of segment TU is 29. And this right here is your final answer. All right. And lastly, here we're going to be looking at what midpoint is, midpoint of a segment. So it says the midpoint of midpoint M of segment AB is a point that bisects or divides the segment into two congruent parts. So think midpoint automatically tells you what it is, the point right in the middle, right? So that means that the midpoint divides the two segments into two congruent segments. So segment AM is equal to the length of segment MB. That's what it's telling me. So if M is the midpoint of segment AB, then length of segment AM is equal to the length of segment MB. So these little tick marks here, they tell me that these two segments are equal to each other. So if, let's say they told me that segment AM is 7, since they're congruent, that means that segment MB will also be 7. Because this point right here cuts it right in the middle. It's right in the middle of the segment AB. That's what midpoint is. The midpoint is right in the middle of the segments, dividing it into two congruent parts. It bisects it. It cuts it into two equal parts. All right, so now let's see. If we look at this example, they're telling me that if point Q is a midpoint of segment PR, so automatically I know that this point is right in the middle. What does that mean? If it's right in the middle, that means that segment PQ is equal to segment QR. That means that they're equal, exactly the same. So then how do we find X here? How can I solve for X? Again, what did we just say? Since the point Q is right in the middle, then that means, what do I know about these two segments? They are equal to each other. So since point Q is right in the middle, that means that the length of segments PQ is equal to the length of segments QR, because the point is right in the middle. All right, so then we can set up our equation, because segment PQ is 7x minus 16, and it's going to equal the length of segment QR, which is 4x plus 2. And there you go. That's how we can set up our equation, knowing that point Q is our midpoint. And so now I can solve for x. Letters with letters. First, let's go ahead and move the 4x to the opposite side. So opposite sign, minus 4x minus 4x. This goes away. And so I'm left with 3x minus 16 equals to 2. Now I got numbers with numbers. Since the 2 is already by itself, I got to move the negative 16 to the opposite side. So opposite sign, plus 16 plus 16. This goes away, and I'm left with 3x equals to 16 plus 2, 18. And lastly, to solve for x, since they're multiplying, my last step is to divide by the same. Divide by 3 on both sides. This goes away, and so x equals to 6. And there you go. Again, the question is asking me to find the value of x, and I found that the value of x equals to 6. Knowing that since point Q is my midpoint right in the middle, I know that these two segments are equal to each other, and that's how I was able to set up my equation. Okay. Let's try another example. Again, here they're telling me if point R, this point, is right in the middle, is the midpoint of segment QS. So again, I automatically know that if this point is right in the middle, I know that segment QR is congruent is equal to segment RS. But now the question is asking me to find length of segment Q all the way to S. That's what they're asking me for. Oh, so in this case, how are we going to do it? Again, all I know here is that point R is right in the middle, so that means I know that these two segments are equal to each other. I know that segment QR, the length of segment QR is equal to the length of segment RS. So all I know is I can set up this equation right here. 2x plus 16, length of segment QR is equal to length of segment RS, which is 5x minus 17. In this case, all I can do right now is solve for x. It's going to solve for x here. Letters with letters first. We move the 2x to the opposite side. So opposite side minus 2x minus 2x. This goes away. I'm left with 16 equals to 3x minus 17. Then now numbers with numbers. In this case, I got to move the 17 to the opposite side. So opposite side plus 17 plus 17. This goes away. And I'm left with 16 plus 17. That gives me 33. Equals to 3x. And lastly, to solve for x, I gotta divide by 3 on both sides. So this goes away. So I found that x equals to 11. But again, the question was not asking me for x. The question is asking me, how can I find the length of segment QS? So in this case, if I already know x, what can I do now? Since I already know that x is 11, what I can do now is I can substitute it into my equation. In this case, I have 2, and instead of the x, I know it's 11 plus 16. So what is the length of segment QR then? 2 times 11, that gives me 22 plus 16. That's going to give me 38. All right, so same thing here. We can do the same thing here. If I know that 5, and I know that x is 11 minus 17, what does that give me? What should it give me? 5 times 11, that's 55 minus 17. This should also give me 38. Exactly. 5 times 11 is 55 minus 17. That gives me 38. Now, should it have given me 38? Yes, because remember, they are both the same. So honestly, we didn't even have to do that for this one because I already know that if this one is 38, this one has to be 38. So in this case, how can I find the length of segment QS? In this case, the length of segment QS is going to equal what's 38 plus 38? 76. So the length of segment QS, what the question is asking me, is 76 because 38 plus 38, that gives me 76. All right, now your turn. I want you to go ahead and try this example, put pause to the video, set it up, try to work it out. You know, it's telling you that point H is the midpoint. So go ahead and solve for this problem. Now the question is asking you to find length of segment G8. So try it out on your own. Go ahead and put pause. Then once you are ready, go ahead and put play and see if your answer is correct. So if you worked out all your work here, you should have gotten that x equal to 3. But again, the question was not asking you for that. The question was asking you to find GH. So the length of segment GH. In this case, the length of segment GH should have given you 17. Okay, so if you remember, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to come back to the Zoom or ask me during class to go over this problem if you did not get it. All right, well, thank you so much for watching my video. If you have any questions, go ahead and go back to the Zoom so that I can help you on the work. Make sure you start on the assignment for today and go back to the Zoom if you have any questions. Don't forget to do all your work on your geometry notebook to submit the picture once you finish your assignment. Again, I will not give you credit for your work unless you submit a picture of your written work as well. So make sure you do that. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to come and ask me. If not, go ahead and get started on your assignment. Thank you.